I know things can seem hard sometimes because of the black pilling, the pessimism, the questions around whether or not we will get justice as it pertains to the corrupt elements of our government. But my friends, Donald Trump has slashed 25% of the IRS workforce, firing nearly 26,000 people. So today, right now, watching this video, I want you guys to feel the withered husk within your chest of what was once hope for the future reignite. I know, I'm kidding, by the way. Donald Trump obviously has got tremendous victories with USAID, Doge cuts. Congress has passed some of these. It's a lot of really great movement. And I don't think we should get bogged down in the weeds based on the Epstein story or the Obama story. Now, don't get me wrong. I know y'all want to see real answers and real accountability. But let's talk about the real tangible effects of a Donald Trump presidency that directly impacts our lives today. The tariffs have only generated money from this government. The inflation that they were predicting never came to pass. Prices have gone down, wages have gone up. All in all, I think things are going pretty dang good. The border is secure. Trump says zero. Can you believe it? I honestly can't believe zero. Now, I don't believe zero either, but it's so low, they're registering near zero. Now, I'm no fan of the IRS. I think that in the United States, our tax policy is backwards and crooked and busted, and it targets people. It doesn't make sense. It's basically this game. Fighting to sneeze here. It's this game where everybody is speeding and hoping they don't get caught, and then half the people who get pulled over didn't do anything wrong. But what does it mean to get pulled over as it pertains to the IRS? And why is it good Trump is firing all these people? How many of you, comment below, tell me right now, how many of you got a letter in the mail after you already filed your taxes saying you owed extra money and you didn't know why? So you get a bill in the mail from the IRS and it says you actually owe us another $324. And you're sitting there scratching your head being like, for what? And it was like based on paperwork that you didn't file, someone else reported you owe us this money. You want to fight it? Good luck, call a lawyer. Now, the average person doesn't know what to do. The average person says, I guess I have no choice but to pay it. The IRS is coming after me. Not to mention the fact that people use the fear of the IRS to launch scams against the American people. So I say this, lay off. Most people file their tax returns. They're doing the job they're supposed to be doing. Stop nickel and diming everybody. If the government wasn't cranking out this deficit spending, and don't get me wrong, Trump's big, beautiful bill does do that, they wouldn't need these people to nickel and dime you. But let me just point out, my friends, 26,000 agency staff. Can we just calculate the average salaries? I don't know what the average salary is. Let's try this. What's the average salary of an IRS agent? The average salary of an IRS agent in the U.S. is approximately $60,000. Can you believe it? $60,000. We're getting rid of 26,000 of these people, which means Donald Trump has brought you savings of $1.5 billion per year. So I do think, can you believe, this is crazy. 26,000 agency staff. How much money do they need to take from you to pay their own salaries? This is a funny thing people need to consider when it comes to stuff like this. You know, I'm doing street fundraising, canvassing for these nonprofits, right? And what people need to understand is you got to pay that person on the street. And if that person on the street's getting paid $20 an hour, that means every hour they need to raise at least $20. Otherwise, the company's losing money. So let's read this story and figure out what exactly is going on. Of course, my friends, smash the like button, share the show, subscribe to this channel, and share the video everywhere on social media. Those shares, man, it does mean everything. Let people know. Let's be happy. The Washington Times says the Trump admin has slashed the IRS workforce by nearly 26,000 people through buyouts and firings, marking a 25% reduction in staffing. This, of course, from yesterday. The cuts sliced through some of the most prominent IRS divisions, taking out 27% of the tax examiners, 26% of the revenue agents. The Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration said, information technology is shedding 23% of its workforce, and the Management and Analysis Division will lose 28% of its staff. These separations will have nationwide implications, the Inspector General said. The data, which was current as of May, showed that most of the departing staffers have accepted one of the administration's various buyout offers. That included about 4,600 approved under the initial January buyout offer and 17,000 approved for voluntary early retirement. Thousands more were part of smaller separation programs, and about 300 were from an official reduction in force. Alex Muricianu, senior policy analyst at the Tax Foundation, said staffing cuts aren't always a problem. However, he said they can be a problem when coupled with new roles for the IRS, such as during the pandemic emergency, and could come into play as the agency implements changes for Mr. Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act. We call that an omnibus. Donald Trump gives it a fancy name. No, we call that an omnibus bill, and we don't like them, but sure. The confluence of low staffing levels and new policies is a messy mix. I think that is a potential challenge in the coming tax season. Well, let me just lay it all out for you, my friends. When they cut the bloat and the scams as they were dumping billions of dollars into NGOs, wipe that out. Maybe they'll stop extracting from your pocket to pay for fancy lawyers in, McLean, Virginia. Now, the funny thing is, a correction, because I've talked about McLean and I was saying it was Loudoun. It's not Loudoun. I got the map wrong. What is it? Frederick County? I don't know. Maybe. Loudoun County is a little bit to the west and still massive and still extremely wealthy. It's the wealthiest median county in the country. And you go to these places, man, I have to wonder. You think Bel Air, you think Hollywood? Hollywood's trash. Like no disrespect, okay? But like Hollywood is hood, okay? People go to Hollywood, they're all excited. It's like one-story buildings and they're selling pizza and Chinese food and they got stars on the street. It's not as crazy as people think it is. You want to go look at the wealth? Look at well, I was going to say the Palisades, but the Palisades is basically gone. Anyway, go to Loudoun County. Go to Tyson's Corner Mall and you're walking through this mall, which is 3 stories, and every shop is like designer fashion boutiques. I don't even know what the point of going to that mall is, but apparently people go. You can get a coffee and a gelato, I guess, with pistachio cream. And then everything else, it's just like Gucci and Louis Vuitton. And that's an understatement too, because those are the mall brands. Like it's all weird high-end boutiques. Anyway, the final result, they say. Well, let me go back. Mr. Trump's cuts would have gone deeper. Could have, really. In February and March, the IRS tried to fire more than 7,300 probationary employees. Some ended up taking buyouts. After legal wrangling, the IRS canceled other firings and about 3,000 returned to work. Those judges. The final result is that the IRS expects to lose some 25,680 employees because of Trump administration separations, the Inspector General said. Some remain on the books under the terms of their buyouts on paid administrative leave through September or the end of the year. When they are gone, the IRS workforce will drop to 77,000, down from 103,000 in January. Fights over IRS staffing have long been proxy for broader questions about tax policy. Republicans demand a slimmer agency that they say will be less scary to taxpayers. And Democrats say the agency needs more people to ensure the rich are paying what they owe. You don't need more people. You can literally just, for every billionaire, hire one guy. There you go. They don't need to do that. They're lying to you, okay? It's as I described. They want you to be run. This is why the Democrats wanted to track all transactions over $600, because you're going to be sitting at home. You paid your taxes. You got your refund. You're very excited. You're like, I got a couple $100 back. I need that. I got to fix something on the car, or, the kid needed new clothes. And then you get a letter in the mail 2 months later from the IRS saying you actually owe a couple $100 more. Your refund was a mistake. Or how about this? How many of you filed your refund? You paid taxes all year. You filled out your paperwork correctly. You saved money and said, thank God I have the savings. I need it for a medical emergency. And then when you file your tax return, it says you owe $700. How many of you have experienced that? Because I know people who have. I remember this is like 10 years ago. I filled out my tax forms for my job. I said, we'll just do everything standard, the way it told me to do it. Single, individual, all that. I was paying out of every paycheck. I said my taxes are getting paid, and I was putting money in savings. And I had a couple grand in savings. The year came to an end. And what happens? They said I owed $7,000, which made literally no sense. I'm like, I don't get it. How do I owe $7,000? I wasn't making that much money. And basically, it annihilated most of my savings and like my next 2 paychecks. And I was pissed. I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. And they said, you know what it was, is that you filled it out wrong. I said, what do I mean filled out wrong? And they were like, when it asked for deductions, they weren't taking enough out of your paycheck every year. So you actually had extra money. And I'm like, but I used that money for rent and for my car. Wow. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't broke by any means. It just meant that what I had planned for and what I thought was right was not correct. So I am not happy with how this system operates. But there are people who are much worse off, like I mentioned. I have people super chatting in the IRL where they say that they paid their bills, they paid their taxes, they had barely enough money, they had a little bit left over, and then the IRS sends them a letter saying you owe more, and they can't fight it. So fire them all for all I care. They say Congress has begun to claw back nearly half of the Biden allocation, and Trump is pushing to reverse the Biden increases. In addition to the buyouts, he has proposed more workforce and operation cuts in fiscal year 2026 spending plan, which Congress is debating. Okay. Well, let's go. The Yale Budget Lab has projected that cutting IRS staff by 50,000 people would cost the government nearly $400 billion in lost tax revenue over 10 years. Shut up. 10 years. It's $40 billion a year. But what they're arguing is the deficit will go up. No, they're arguing they're going to steal from you to cover their bills. You know what, man? I got credit cards, right? I pay them off every month. I don't go to my neighbor and steal their money to pay my credit card bills. I work for it. The U.S. government could learn a lesson from the average American. So, hey, don't worry. Be happy. I know it's pretty heavy with all of the stuff going on around, the Epstein stuff and the Obama stuff. But hey, at the very least, we get this. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Smash the like button, subscribe, share the videos if you do like them. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next segment.